The following unedited footage has been declassified by the Banzai Institute for Biomedical Engineering and Strategic Information. We must also acknowledge the extraordinary cooperation of those countless members of Team Banzai in Texas and in New Jersey, without whose great support we could not have proceeded.
From the 8th dimension! Buckaroo Banzai?
Buckaroo Banzai.
Buckaroo Banzai.
Buckaroo Banzai is a modern-day Renaissance man.
Deuce, you say?
Buckaroo Banzai is a contemporary hero in the sense that he's a fragmented individual.
I know his time.
He's a bit of Leonardo da Vinci, Jacques Cousteau, Albert Einstein, and Adam Ant.
You're thinking of Mr. Wizard.
And he's an adventurer who's in love with the unknown. He is not, and I say once again, not a superhero.
He is our leader. I mean, he's everything, and at the same time, he's still a human being, even though he's a hero.
Buckaroo is a hero in terms of other people defining Buckaroo.
He's this wonderful, charming guy who is... It's real possible to meet Buckaroo. He's not someone that you'd never know in life.
Mostly he wants to make the planet a better place.
No matter where you go, there you are.
Let's rock and roll!
Well, the Hong Kong Cavaliers are the rock and roll band with Buckaroo Banzai. Each and every member of the group has a job, many jobs, really. Perfect Tommy builds a car. He's designed it.
Space Monster's my ass.
Jeff Goldblum, he's the surgeon before he comes into it.
You know, I thought we were going to rehearse or something.
Rawhide handles all the books and is really Buckaroo's right-hand man and has been with him the longest.
He understands Buckaroo as a person better than anybody else.
So they really do many things.
Encountering Buckaroo Banzai and his group of Hong Kong Cavaliers is quite unusual.
Not at all.
More fun I've had in a long time. And that's a lot of fun.
How about my missing circuit? No! Curse you, Banzai!
Dr. Lizardo is a human, a mortal. His body was taken over by Lord Warfin, the Electroid alien, back in 1938. Lord Warfin's goal is the overthruster.
Oscillation overthruster.
And that will plunge him through the 8th dimension and he'll be able to get home.
Let's go home.
Lord Warfin and all of his red Electroids, it's like E.T. Go Home with a difference, you know.
Where are we going?
If you'd ask what the film's about in one line, God, I've been asking about that for a while. I know nothing.
Oh, yeah? That's
Every time I say anything about this film, I have to go into like a half an hour of explanations.
This is a serious question.
Well, they don't know what the hell is going on. I mean, this movie is like none other that I've ever made. I mean,
You can talk a long time about it, but you can't say quickly what the film is.
I've never done a movie like this before.
We don't know what genre to call it.
Don't know. I mean, who does know?
I don't know. I can't even remember the movie now.
Laugh for a while you can, monkey boy.
My mind is fried. I don't...
It is a comedy, it's a drama, and it's an entertainment from a slightly left field point of view.
Get it?
Oh.
Welcome, I'm W.D. Richter, the director of the original 1984 docudrama, The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai, Across the 8th Dimension. And it's a real privilege and a kind of a kick to be sitting here today in one of the mixing rooms at the Banzai Institute for Biomedical Engineering and Strategic Information in New Jersey. We're here today because the Institute has allowed us to go into the archives and probe around and come up with some of the original stuff that we based the film on. I've never met Buckaroo Banzai. Mac Roush is my conduit into the world, but that's as close as I've ever gotten to shaking the hand of a real Hong Kong Cavalier or anybody in Buckaroo's inner circle. I hate to say he's a Renaissance man. It's kind of almost a meaningless, so pretend I didn't say that. He's just a really interesting guy. I think that what he does with other people is probably what inspires a lot of the fans, because he gets the best out of everybody. He has a pretty freewheeling collection of friends and associates, and he lets people be who they are and encourages them to be the better versions of themselves, and he sees that in people and he draws it out. He's a natural leader without trying to. That's what we all want, isn't it? I mean, to go into a room, whether it's your personal life or your business life, and just feel, I'm glad I'm here. I'm doing things with people I like, and I'm getting to deliver the best I can deliver, and nobody's on my case, except Lizardo, Hanoi Shan, the real bad guys. I do have some things that are not really props, not props in the movie, but they're artifacts from the Institute's archives down the hall that we used to model some of the props, working props you saw in the movie on. And I have an oscillation overthruster here. I am not positive what this is. I mean, it's an oscillation overthruster. Is it a, you know, you should see this. This is how the archives catalog things. This object looks, to my eye, like the real thing. It feels like the real thing. I'm not a rocket scientist. It is the size of the oscillation overthrusters, and as far as I know, it's the only one in the archive, so it could well be the real thing. They give you stuff, and they don't really give you enough information. They just give you things, little toys. This is Scooter Lindley's hat. Once his head got too big for it, it was retired. And this is the original rock. You can see it in the film. Buckaroo holds it up, but it's real. It's from the 8th dimension. And it's probably the most prized artifact down the hall there. I'm just going to put it on the table here and ask that nobody touches it. Obviously, a key design element in the film is the oscillation overthruster because it drives the plot. We were able to get access to really only one truly authentic piece of photography in Buckaroo's life, and it's the whole movie sequence. That allowed us to see the real oscillation overthruster from that period because it's visible in the shot, it's on the car. But from that, we were able to extrapolate in small ways, you know, freeze the frame and larger things, what the overthruster might have turned into. But what I just showed you earlier is so similar to what we have in the movie that I wonder if somebody on my production team wasn't slipped a photograph of the real thing.
This is the overthruster unit for Buckaroo Banzai's 8th dimension machine. Basically, it was found in Los Angeles surplus places here and there. On the outside, there'll be fiber optics with a light source. The rest of the machine hunts to find the right geometric pattern. A little hard to see. These will carry light, this being the output, and snap into place. That's when it's able to travel through matter.
Under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
With liberty and justice for all.
The harmonica bracket, like a Bob Dylan harmonica.
We're always asked about the Lectroid heads, and well, Mike Riva designed them in concert with Tom Berman, the Berman Studios. You know, they do creature makeup. They do all sorts of makeup, but they are pretty darn good at creating fantastic creatures.
This is John Lithgow. We take a head cast of the individual actor. After we take a head cast, we sculpt in clay what you see here. Then we cut individual sections out of the clay, and we make individual molds, like so. This is a foam rubber piece made from one of those molds, and this consists of his chin and his neck. And the second piece would be this nose and upper lip. And this piece right here is a forehead. These are all attached and glued together. We pre-put these together to save us makeup time later. This area right here is one piece. This is one piece. And this is one piece. This is Vincent Schiavelli. You can see the similarity in the makeup. We tried to keep the character like the actor so that you as the audience would realize who these characters are when they're in makeup, so they didn't all look like one particular alien and you wouldn't be confused. This head right here was a test we did of some kinds of Lectroidian war paint, something that these characters do. And the hands for the principals are made in such a way they're made of foam rubber, and they are custom fit to each principal, so they get complete articulation, like so. It's actually a larger job than Planet of the Apes. We would run about 14 to 20 molds a day, and on this film we're doing over 100 molds a day. So it's quite an extensive job.
He had to deliver us close-up quality heads and enormous numbers of heads that were going to work in the background, and never knew exactly whether these people would commingle, whether in like Yo-Yo-Dine you're going to have to walk Chris Lloyd right past somebody else. He pulled it off pretty well, but I think he also was overwhelmed because at certain points our budget didn't allow us to bring him onto the set to supervise the application of the really sophisticated pieces, the heads that had many, many pieces. And in the film, inside the Black Lectroid mothership, when the aliens are sitting on very tall stools, we come in for some close-ups on the best makeup in the movie, and that's all Tom Berman applied as well as designed. And if you look at that, you can see how much expression is possible through them. Now, jump into another sequence, go into the car where Chris Lloyd and Vincent Schiavelli and Dan Hedaya are speeding away from the press conference, and we were well enough into the movie when we couldn't afford Tom Berman on the set. Look at their heads, and you realize that they don't have half the ability to move those faces around. I guess it's great, though. On some level, I always smile when I see that, so maybe it was a fortunate lack of money. You decide. The look of the film came out of maybe some of the more fantastic concepts for the science in the movie. So when we step across the line and say, today we're going to design props or spaceships or stuff, some of the information is provided us. Some of it we kind of have to fish around with and distort reality, because that's part of, I think, what Dr. Banzai is after, is to see what we'll make of his adventures when he says there was a spaceship from Planet 10. It's not like we get photographs of it, but we got hints. So we went into sea life. We studied books about the undersea and crustaceans. It's not a hardware approach, it's much more organic. You see that organic look in the mothership. I guess it's a chunk of coral that production designer Mike Riva found, and we stared at it for quite a while and realized it couldn't, life could inhabit this thing, and take it from there. Greg Jean was recommended, again, as somebody that we really had to try to get, an extraordinary young model maker. And maybe Mike Riva knew him, but anyway, suddenly there was Greg Jean willing to confront coral and lobsters and weird things and start making spaceships out of them, and he constructed them beautifully. I think, the thermopod at the end that Buckaroo flies is a much more beautiful object if you hold it in your hand and look at it than you can ever realize from watching the film, because it had real detail on it and little brass elements in it. It's kind of sad in some cases when you realize you can't get on film what you're holding in your hand. You just don't get to see it all.
This is, to the best of my knowledge, is just called the thermopod. We call it thermopod number 1, or the thermopod that leaves the mothership. The basic structure is based on a seashell type texture. This is a one-to-one drawing of what I'm doing, and the portion that's being built in live action is this egg section right here. Now we're sort of sculpting this from the drawing right now, but eventually we'll be matching it to the full-size set that they've already built. So we have to coordinate what we're doing with the full-size crew. The model was made basically by sculpting some urethane foam and covering it with wax, and then covering it with modeling paste until we got the desired texture we wanted. Right now I've just put some saran wrap in here, and I'm building a brace so that this model can sit belly down without distorting the shape of its tentacles. The next step will be to put in some clay, sculpt in the basic membrane wing-like area for the hang glider itself. That's all the interesting things I have to say about it. Continued next week.
There have been copies of an earlier cut of the movie going around for years on the sci-fi circuit. What that is an early cut that I was comfortable with, but I wasn't through cutting. It was given to sound effects people so they could get cues and get to work on things. I know that there's a notion out there that this VHS rough cut represents my version of the film, and that what was released was forced on me by the studio. It's really not true. You're going to get to see a lot of stuff on this DVD that's not in the original movie, and it's not necessarily cut into the original movie on the DVD. We just elected to present it to you, and it's not going to be the quality of the movie itself. It's not taken from negative, it's taken from my tapes that are dupes of the work print, because the work print is vanished. And, well, I have some thoughts about where it might be, but I'm not going to be the one to say that. So we're forced to resort to tapes from my collection that have been in boxes for years, have moved with me around the country, and now are being kind of treated to be the best version of themselves that we can give you. I think it's kind of interesting because some of the age shows on them and some of the things they've been through maybe is something you can enjoy looking at. It's just look into the grain and see what's really in there.
At the age of 5 and already a highly unusual person, Buckaroo Banzai makes a movie of his own tiny feet. Location is the American Southwest, the year 1954.
The whole movie sequence in the film was a real interesting exercise, totally different from everything else that we did because we were dealing with purely scripted material, reading pages like anybody would on any movie set. But with the home movies, we basically were trying to duplicate original footage with actors. So one way to kind of do the home movies but do them in a way that's in the spirit of the rest of the movie is to cast somebody in it who's recognizable, somebody who clearly makes the case for this being a dramatization. Jamie Lee Curtis was willing to do that. She was hanging around the set early on. She loved the movie. She loved the spirit of what we were doing. And she said, is there any room for me in it? And I said, well, yeah, absolutely. You want to play Buckaroo's mom? And that is, for me, a kind of a perfect solution where an awful lot of that looks almost exactly like the real home movies, but Jamie Lee Curtis doesn't really look like Buckaroo's mom. The sequence upset Buckaroo. It unsettled him. Upset is wrong. I mean, he wasn't angry, but it rattled him to watch that in the movie because he was sort of like going back and watching his parents over and over again every time he saw the movie. So at his request, although he did have final cut, he could have muscled us on this one, he asked us to eliminate the home movies from the film.
This is the 1952 version of the jet car. And in fact, the original jet car, it's the second experiment. The 38 version was the first, of course. This car explodes, and Buckaroo's mother and father are killed in this, unfortunately. This actually started off as an authentic 1950s jet fighter plane, if you can believe it. It's made of wood. It's a British plane. America's never made theirs out of wood. It's a static model. But again, we have a real airplane and a real jet engine. Although a jet engine doesn't work, it'll be made to smoke and give off some exhaust.
The jet car, that was a real challenge because we didn't want to do it all with special effects, and we didn't think that special effects at the time were capable of delivering what we needed. We went to an organization called Thrust Racing that professionally built race cars with jet engines. They would just go at extremely high speeds down straightaways through real jet engines hurling the cars forward. And we presented them with our problems. We needed a gnarly, eccentric-looking vehicle created out of bits and pieces. With a welder's torch and some real smart engineering, and made the thing work. I mean, we can't go through solid matter with ours because our oscillation overthruster is a prop, but we could hurl that car down the desert at that kind of speed, and those are real flames you see. Stephen Dane, Jerry Siegel from Thrust Racing, these are guys who built this car from scratch and gave us a jet car. Even when people like this movie, they say, I don't understand it. I can't track the plot. I know I love the spirit of it. I like the characters, but there are definite confusions. And I know that. I've had to confront the lack of clarity about who is Penny Pretty versus Peggy Pretty. What relationship did Penny Pretty have to Buckaroo Banzai? Why doesn't Penny know that Peggy was her sister? Who really is Hanoi Shan? Well, let me start at the front. It is, I think, obvious in the home movies that Buckaroo's parents are killed by an incendiary device planted by Hanoi Shan. He's the real villain in Buckaroo's life, the boss of the World Crime League, the supreme commander of the Legion of Death. Hanoi Shan haunts Buckaroo. He's just behind him all the time, messing him up and trying to take those away from him that he really cares about. There's a scene when Buckaroo is in his dressing room getting his 6 guns, and Penny is sort of challenging him about, why he's got her here, who she is, and stuff. There was a Hanoi Shan reference in that scene that is really what drives Peter Weller to seem sort of not quite as compelled to race out of the room and with those 6 guns as you would think from the ingoing scene. It's because it's occurring to him what's going on. He's starting to really sense the hand of Shan again involved in this.
You think you're gonna destroy me like you did my sister? Think I don't know who you are, Hanoi Shan?
We took those things out because this is not a haunted movie. People say it's an action comedy, and Shan is nothing to laugh at. He's nothing to make light of. And so the deletions came because it struck my ear as well as, I guess, Dr. Banzai's, that they were false notes. When you say that name, you better not be in a comedy.
Hanoi Shan. Who's that?
Will you see The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai against the World Crime League? I hope so, but I really don't know. And I don't know that if we got the right to do another one, it would be exactly Buckaroo Banzai against the World Crime League. That was a sort of simplistic way to describe what the next chapter might be. There are more stories to tell. I have to believe we're going to get to tell them because it seems like people want to hear them. What they'll be, I don't know. I don't know if Buckaroo knows today. We'll pick the more interesting ones, and if somebody lets us do it, you'll get more. I hope they do.
Dad, Buckaroo's in trouble!
It's not my goddamn planet. Understand, monkey boy?
Take her to the pit!
Just be cool. Just be cool.
Remember, no matter where you go, there you are.
It's a 3-man thermopod.